Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to head through to Glasgow once again, and we're going to revisit one of the breweries who are really quite recognisable in Scotland today. You know, their beers are very widely distributed amongst the different supermarkets, but they also have an experimental range of beers which are very, very highly regarded, and it's one of those that we're going to have a look at today, so I'm very curious to see how this one turns out. So for this review we are going to head to Drygate Brewing Company once again, who you'll find just to the east of the city centre in Glasgow in the Wellgate area, and we're having a taste of a beer from their Spectrum series, which is their barrel aged series. This one is the Close Quarters, which is a bourbon barrel aged Scotch ale, and it comes in at 11.2% ABV. This is only the second beer that they've released in this barrel aged series. The other one is a barley wine, which I believe is called Tempered Spirits or Kindred Spirits, something like that. That's also supposed to be very good. I actually bought this beer on site at the Drygate Brewery when I was filming my brewery visit video. That should have published by now, so make sure you check it out. And I got it for only £6. I mean, when you consider what this beer is, it is actually pretty good. I guess that's probably about €7 or, you know, like $8 US, something like that for those of you watching abroad. So yeah, really curious to see how this one turns out. And as always, I hope you guys enjoy my take on this beer. I really love reviewing Scotch ales for you here on the channel. It's one of my favourite beer styles, and there's not too many breweries in Scotland actually doing these, which is one of the ironic things. But in the last couple of years, it seems to have picked up a little bit, so hopefully this is another good one. So anyway, as is usual with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Drygate Brewing Company before. No doubt I will add some more in the fairly near future. There's all the usual social media. If you want to see more beer reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel, of course, has a geography-based tagging system, so you can go into the home page and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, prefecture, whatever it is you're interested in. Do check out the playlists of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the Scottish beers that I've reviewed for you. That's being added to whenever I get the opportunity. And as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show your channel is massively appreciated. So anyway, to tell you a little bit about Drygate Brewery then, on to my brewery notes. So as I mentioned to you earlier, the Drygate Brewery is based in Wellgate in Glasgow, which is just a little bit to the east of the city centre. Just go to Strathclyde University and head a little bit further down the road from that. But it's actually based in an old box factory which has a 7-toothed roof, hence the logo that they've got, and you can see that just underneath the Drygate writing there. But the company started back in 2014, and it's a joint venture between Tennent's parent company, Tennent's of course being one of the big macro lagers that we have here in Scotland for those of you watching abroad again, and also between Williams Brothers Brewery, who are from just down the road from me here in Clipmanshire in Scotland. But on site they've got a bar, beer hall, restaurant, event space, sun terrace and bottle shop. It's a really kind of quite snazzy modern space. Again, if you check out my brewery visit video that I did, you can see all of that for yourself. It's a really nice place to go during the summer and have some food and try some of the different beers. There's a lot of beers in there that you won't actually come across anywhere else, like these kind of experimental beers, but apparently they have a sign that says great beers and great beards, and I didn't see that when I was there, so I was a little bit disappointed because maybe I would have got a free beer or something like that. But the brew pub is marketed as experiential, and the main reason for this is apparently the huge window that allows people to see the brew kit, and apparently this is a 24 hectolitre plant that they've got, and you'll see that in the video again. Right next to the bar you can see into the actual brewery and see them doing all the different beers there. But apparently they also do tours and allow people to participate in the brewing process, so you can book one of those for yourself, and at any one time the bar has 24 different tap beers. Quite often there's a lot of their own things, but they do have various guest beers in from breweries that they're collaborating with, and the bottle shop has over 200 bottles of beer at any one time as well. I did show you around that in my brewery visit video as well. But that's all you really need to know about Drygate Brewing Company for the moment. It's definitely a nice place to go and visit, and it's cool to see one of the big boys in Scotland, such as Tennent's, being a little bit more experimental and getting in with the craft beers as well, because they have the experimental beers that they've done, like I say, have tended to be pretty good. And one of the things that I guess, you know, the whole mantra behind Brewdog is to get people drinking better beer and things like that, so pretty cool. But yeah, that's all you really need to know about the Drygate Brewing Company just now. If you want to learn more, of course, you can check out the brewery website in the description below, and as always, you can follow them on Facebook and Instagram and things like that. That'll keep you up to date with all the latest goings on, and if you want to see all the different beers that they've done, I recommend you check out the Untappd page and also the Rate Beer page as well. But yeah, let's get on to the actual tasting of this beer itself then. You can see the bottle has just been sweating a little bit when it's been sitting and I've been filming. But yeah, as you can see, really nicely presented, this one. You know, they're using a lot of this kind of retro computer graphic style artwork on this one. This barrel aged series that they're doing, incidentally, is called the Spectrum series, and they basically say they want to show people what the, you know, the whole spectrum of what beer can actually be. But nice artwork on this one, a little bit different from what you'd find on their normal beers. There's the address of the brewery there, Drygate Brewing Co, 85 Drygate, Glasgow, Scotland. You can see that 7-toothed roof there is on the bottle cap too. But yeah, on the side here it says, Spectrum series, our barrel aging program continues with Close Quarters, the latest of our ongoing series of monthly Spectrum releases celebrating small batch brewing and exploring the full spectrum of what beer can be. Always brewed and bottled by hand. Every beer is a passion project. Drygate.com. So yeah, kind of quite cool. But without further ado then, let's get this guy out and we'll get on with the tasting. Oddly enough, it didn't actually say on the website what the hop and malt profile was in this one, but it did have it for the tempered spirits, for the barley wine, which the barley wine incidentally was 12%. So I maybe need to see if I can get a hold of one of those. But yeah, let's get this guy out and we'll get on with the tasting then. Really curious to see how this beer turns out. Nice little bit of smoke on the opening, as you can see. So let's get it out and into the glass. I don't know what volume they would produce these beers on. I mean, if they've got a 24 hectolitre plant, if it's 2,400 litres a time, that might be, yeah, that would be, or is it 24, no, I don't think it's 24,000 litres at one time, that would be a bit crazy. But yeah, if, you know, it must take them a hell of a long time to bottle these different beers. But yeah, so I really don't know how big the batches are that they produce of these things, but I tell you something, this looks absolutely lovely. So with this beer then, as you can see, I'm not sure how well the light's showing that on the camera, but this one has poured a lovely dark sort of rosewoody colour, to be honest. If I shine the light through it, it's got a really lovely kind of ruby edge to it. There was a quarter finger of a frothy, I would say sort of very light beigey fawn coloured head. One or two big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass with this one, and quite a few little ones just heading up towards the bottom of that head there. But you know, overall it does look very, very nice. Nothing overly surprising about this one when you consider it's a Scotch ale, and definitely one of the darker ones and more woody, ruby coloured ones that you're going to come across. So yeah, looks very nice. This beer, incidentally, I would say it's a little bit hazy. It's obviously unfiltered, but you're not really going to be able to see that on the camera. You can see a little bit of light passing through it, but to be honest, yeah, mainly a kind of nice hazy sort of thing. But yeah, let's have a little look at the aroma then and just see how we get on with this one. Oh, that smells really nice. Yeah, so it's beautiful, this, and that's one of the things I love about Scotch ales. Of course, probably one of the kind of iconic Scotch ales, if you like, is going to be the Two Bastards you get from oh, the brewery's going out of my head, Founders Brewing Company, the Backwoods Bastard and the Dirty Bastard. You know, these are the two kind of iconic Scotch ales in the from America these days. They were, of course, the ones who adopted the term wee heavy Scotch ale, and to us in Scotland that would be the equivalent of, say, an 80 or 90 shilling. You know, for those of you watching abroad, incidentally, in Scotland, our traditional beers, they were always marked with the shilling. The shilling was used before the pound was decimalised. So you had the beers at the lower end of the scale with, you know, 40 shilling, for example, and if you had more malt and more alcohol, progressively you would move your way up to 80 and 90 shilling, and that was the tax that you paid on the beer, essentially. But usually these wee heavy Scotch ales that you'll get from America, they're somewhat akin to an 80, 90 shilling. Of course, Tracker House here in Scotland do a 160 shilling beer, which is a bit of a monster as well. So, you know, it's kind of subjective these days, but the American ones are always a little bit more sweet in their brown sugary qualities and a little bit more kind of red fruity compared to the original Scottish ones, which are sometimes a bit more roasty and more kind of slightly phenolic and medicinal in their fruit qualities. So yeah, just bear that in mind when you're looking at these beers. And when you've got the barrel aging on this one, that's going to thin out the body of this beer a little bit. But when you go into this beer and just smell the aroma, it really is quite, it really comes across as very cakey and very medicinal. There's a lot of juicy kind of plums, prunes, dates, these sort of things. It does have a little bit of that sharper fruit that you would expect from plums and you know, plums and raisins, but it's got that kind of pruny, datey sort of thing in there as well, and a little bit of that juicier, lighter figgy quality, maybe even some blackcurrants and blackberries. It's very fruity and very kind of fruit cakey, if you like. It almost comes across as being like, it's almost a little bit like brandy or something like that. It's like a fruity kind of cakey brandy sort of thing. It's almost like Christmas pudding a wee bit, to be honest. But yeah, there's a hell of a lot of brown sugar in this beer as well. It's very syrupy. A lot of treacle and molasses in there. It's quite a heavily caramelised sugar. There's a bit of toastiness to it there, but it does come across as being more sweet than toasty in my mind. Definitely some nice kind of oaky qualities too. There's a little bit of vanilla popping out of this one. It's almost a little bit like, you know, vanilla fudge or something like that, because the brown sugars really have that lighter kind of sweet quality to them. So it does come across as being a little bit like a, you know, a vanilla fudge, something like that. Almost a little bit like Werther's Originals too, a little bit butterscotchy. So yeah, that's lovely how that all goes together. Yeah, so yeah, like I say, nice dark treacle and molasses brown sugars, definitely leaning towards the sweet side of things. It's got that lighter sweet caramel in there, almost a little bit fudgy, some nice oaky woody qualities underlying this one. It's bourbon barrel aged that's in here, and the bourbon barrels, again, American whiskey is a little bit sweeter than the Scotch whiskey, I've always found. Whenever you give the American something, it always tends to be sweeter and more boozy and juicier in its fruity qualities generally. But yeah, you can really smell that kind of really, that, oh, it's almost leathery. You can really get that leathery sort of bourbony quality out of it. It's maybe a little bit like brandy as well, to be honest. Yeah, I like how that goes together. This is a beautiful smelling beer. In terms of Scotch ales, definitely at the more kind of medicinal, phenolic end of the spectrum. The phenols, of course, are the things that, you know, it's almost like cough syrupy, to be honest. It really has that, but very cakey, very sweet and brown sugary at the same time. Lovely woody infused qualities there as well. The fruits have got a good balance between the sharpness and the juiciness that I described earlier. In terms of hoppiness, you're not getting too much out of the beer in that way. It's more along the lines of, there's a little teensy bit of earthiness there, maybe some grassiness, not really any floral notes at all, but maybe we'll get some of that in the flavour. But overall, in terms of aroma, this beer comes across as absolutely beautiful. I really like how this whole thing goes together. So yeah, if you get this beer, do take a little bit of time and just enjoy the aroma before you get stuck into it. It comes across absolutely beautifully. So yeah, let's have a taste of this one then and see how we get on. This one is the Close Quarters, an 11.2% bourbon barrel Scotch ale, aged in American bourbon barrels for 5 months. From the Drygate Brewing Company Spectrum series, their barrel aged series at the Wellgate Brewery in Glasgow. Let's get stuck in. Slàinte, skål. Ooh, that's really nice. That is very, very good. Quite different to other Scotch ales that I've come across, and like I was saying earlier, when you have these pardon me, took a bit of that the wrong way, but when you have these bourbon barrel or barrel aged Scotch ales, it always just thins the body out a little bit, and you can feel that with this one. I would love to try this one when it's they've obviously got a very strong base recipe here. I'd love to try this one without the barrel aging and just see how that comes out, because it takes away a little bit of the big kind of stickiness that you would normally get from this style. But as it stands, it really is quite nice. So thumbs up to Drygate Brewing Company for this one. I mean, as I said, I heard very good things about these more experimental beers that they were doing, and this one proves that yeah, they can really up their game when they want to. So make sure you get a hold of some of these. So yeah, where to start with this beer then? straight away you can really feel that nice smooth oaky quality just blanket in the middle of your palate. That's forming the backbone of this beer. If you move a bit further forward on the tongue, kind of, if you almost go to the front corners and then just in, that's where you get the nice kind of vanilla qualities out of this beer. It comes in, really, it's a big oily, boozy quality that this beer has when you take it in. But yeah, when you take it in, it's got a little bit of sharpness and then it smooths out really nicely. You get the woodiness, the vanilla flavours, and you start to get all of these kind of brown sugary notes in there as well. It's interesting this, because it's not quite as, the aroma really gives you the impression of all these kind of treacle molassesy sort of things, but it's actually very, very light and more leaning towards, I was picking up fudge in the aroma. It really comes across as more of that in the flavour than it does the big dark brown sugars, and that's one of the things I do wonder with the barrel aging, if that's taken away a little bit of the if that's taken away a little bit of the bigger kind of brown sugar qualities that you'd normally expect from this beer. But yeah, you do get some of it in the middle of your palate. So in the very centre of your tongue, you get this nice, quite light feeling brown sugary quality there. It does come across as being kind of like a whiskey infused sort of treacly molasses sort of thing. It does have that almost bourbon quality to it, like I was saying. It is bourbon barrels they've used, so that would make sense. But you've really got this very caramelised treacle molasses flavour in there. It's not the darkest and most syrupy or treacle molasses qualities that you would come across, but it's you know, it does have that lovely bourbon infused flavour to it. It's really interesting that this Scotch ale is really quite different to some of the other ones that I've come across before, so big thumbs up to them for that. It actually reminds me a little bit of the oh, what was it called, the cuvée, the Kaiser Cuvée de Kaiser from Garden Carolus over in Belgium. It kind of reminds me of that a little bit, this beer, just the way that some of these flavours are kind of coming out of it. And I'm sure that one was aged in cognac barrels, if I remember correctly. That brewery produced their own Belgian whiskies, which is really unusual. But yeah, this is really, really quite nice. So big thumbs up to Drygate Brewing this one. You get a lot of the complexities out of this beer in the aftertaste. It's not really got the kind of breadiness and things like that you would normally expect from this style. It really is kind of very smooth and very, very sweet, this one. So if that sounds like it's going to tick the boxes for you, I'm sure you'd enjoy this. I'd love to see them produce, if they were doing this Spectrum series, do do 2 different batches of this. Do one and leave it alone, and then do one with the barrels. Actually, I think that would be an interesting project for them, to be honest. I'd be curious to see what this one's like without the aging. But yeah, on the hoppy side of things then, back corners of the palate, you've got a little bit of a very light earthiness there. It kind of spreads forward, and there's not too much in the way of hoppy qualities to this beer on the side of the tongue. There's not even any floral qualities there. It's almost like there's just nothing on the front corners of your palate. But as you go round the front curve of the tongue, it's just that little bit lighter and grassy, and then the fruity parts of the beer, they come out in that little oily bubble that I always talk about behind the very front curve of your tongue. So yeah, in the beginning, it comes across, it has a little bit of that raisiny, plummy sharpness, and then it just smooths out and you start to get these datey, pruny qualities in there as well. And then the further you go into the aftertaste, it evolves to be a little bit more figgy and blackcurrant, blackcurrant orientated. The further you go into the aftertaste, the more sort of phenolic it becomes. There's almost the impression of just a cakey quality on the very front tip of your tongue too. You know, there's not even a biscuity kind of quality to this one. I'm noticing that the further I go into the aftertaste as well, you do start to get a little bit of that toasty kind of grainy quality out of the beer the further you go into the aftertaste. And like I said, that's one of the things that defines it as a traditional Scotch ale rather than an American one, because I would really say that this one leans far more towards what you would expect from an American brewery, which is kind of interesting. It really has a bit more of that kind of sweeter aspect to it rather than having the dark roasty qualities you'd expect of a Scottish Scotch ale. But regardless, it's a very, pardon me, a very, very solid beer, this one. I certainly wouldn't hesitate to drink it again, but this is definitely a sipper and one that you enjoy, so I'll be taking this through to enjoy the rest of it with my dad when I finish filming this. But it's a lovely beer that, if you like the, you know, for example, the Backwoods Bastard and the Wee Heavy, the Backwoods Bastard from Founders Brewing, or you know, the Wee Heavy from Alesmith, I think you will really enjoy this one. It's definitely more of an American type Scotch ale, this one, rather than a traditional Scottish beer. But the woody qualities in this are really nice, and that fudgy quality that this beer has is really quite lovely as well. Those are the two really unique things about this one, and the way the complexity of the fruits is also quite impressive in it as well. So big thumbs up to Drygate Brewing for this one. It's a beer that you really should check out. And I think on the basis of this one, I will be trying to get hold of that barley wine and review it for you as well. But I'm not sure how successful I'm going to be there. But yeah, let's leave it at that for this review. It's been really quite nice to review. In fact, I've not talked about the mouthfeel yet. That's terrible. So yeah, in terms of mouthfeel, this one, definitely a full-bodied beer. Carbonation is very, very smooth with this one. It's a big oily mouthfeel, this one. There's no doubt in my mind that this is a full-bodied beer. Overall, in terms of the malt base, I'd say that it's really the woody qualities in this one make it quite smooth. I think the barrel aging really has kind of thinned the mouthfeel out a little bit with this beer. As I said, it would be interesting to try the original one and see what it's like, because I think you'd get a lot more of the brown sugars coming out of it then. But a really smooth and quite sweet malt base with this one. In terms of IBUs and the hoppy bitterness, really not a lot to this. I think you're lucky if you get maybe 10 or 15 IBUs out of this beer. Lovely juicy fruitiness, though a little bit sharp in the beginning, and then it smooths out to be nice and juicy. But a beautiful beer, this one. Big oily Scotch ale, and definitely leaning towards that American end of the spectrum when it comes to this particular style. So yeah, let's leave it at that now that I've done everything that I wanted to do. So once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comments section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from the Drygate Brewing Company as well. This is one of the ones from their Spectrum series, which I'll be keeping an eye on too. They're very, very good when it comes to these experimental beers, or so I've been told, and I've been impressed with this first one. So make sure you keep an eye on what they're doing on Facebook and Instagram. Make sure you check out more of my videos. And yeah, thank you again for watching. This one is the Close Quarters, a barrel-aged Scotch ale coming in at 11.2% from the Spectrum series at Drygate Brewing Company in Wellgate in Glasgow. Thank you again for watching, and I will catch you guys very soon. Make sure you check out this beer and have a go at some of their other things as well. Until the next time, slàinte just now, and I'll catch you guys later. Slàinte, skål, cheers.